It's 33 minutes after the hour of 7 a.m. Central Time here where I am. I don't know where you are, but you can do the math. Just look at your clock. It's that easy. It's a feel-good Friday. What can I say? Well, you know, we've talked all about various things that are going on right now with our United States. And now we have the corporate United States from 1871, and then we have the other United States, which is in nothing but utter turmoil right now. I don't know what it is. It's not people trying to find, X-rated Taylor Swift photos. It's everything but that. It's the psyop that they're playing on everybody right now because we are in 2024 and there's a huge election coming on, supposedly. We're now being told in Washington State there's a new virus out there. Well, it's a fungus now. There is fungus among us. Yeah, it's Candida. Oh, by the way, there's a setting on the Rife machine for that. Just see, those of you in Washington State want to get yourself a Rife machine, you could do that. But when it comes to our dysfunctional government, they put the funk in dysfunctional. Understand, and Peter Serafin, who's with us, is shaking his head in agreement with that. He has a new book coming out. I guess it's May 1. Mayday. Trust Shattered, Cases of Government Betrayal. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for your service. We appreciate that. You're a U.S. Navy vet in the Navy. Yep. So you probably know that by heart. Are you a postal carrier?
I am. I'm a rural mail carrier for the United States Postal Service.
Wow. I always, when I go to the store, I'm always asking, could I have buy a roll of Forever Bankrupt stamps? No. Forever Bankrupt. I mean, the clerks just start laughing. It's like you can't deny you guys are in some sort of financial trouble. As much as we'd like to think it, they keep raising the price of a postage stamp, and I'm never going to hear the end of that. But anyway, I mean, you being a mail carrier and everything, and committed educator on constitutional principles. That's the one thing. I mean, you and I both did the same thing. We both raised our hand. We both took the oath to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. So now I guess I should ask you, because this Trust Shattered, Cases of Government Betrayal is not out yet.
Correct.
But something, obviously, I mean, you work for the Postal Service, which is its own corporation, its own business. It's, I guess, funded by the United States government in some ways. Some of it's funded by the taxpayer in other ways.
Actually, the post office, except for the little COVID stimulus that they got, like everyone got, the post office is independent and funded entirely by postage.
Interesting.
It does not get tax dollars and hasn't since the 1970s. I don't remember when it happened. When it switched from being the Postal Service to the United States it switched from the Postal Department to the United States Postal Service sometime in the 1970s.
I got to update my history book here. I stand corrected. See, the only way you're going to find this out is to ask a mailman who knows, right? Because I don't get to talk to too many mailmen. I get to talk to the postal clerks, but hell, they don't know anything about history of the post office. Obviously, you do because you've been studying this stuff religiously. So now, what prompted you to write Trust Shattered?
Well, this is my fourth book, and I've written and self-published 3 other books, and never really put a whole lot of anything behind it as far as marketing goes. So, I wrote them, I put them out there, and I sold whatever I sold. This one, I think, has the potential to influence public opinion about government. It's basically a 30,000-foot view of 45 different instances where the government has betrayed the trust, betrayed their duty to protect the life, liberty, and property of the citizens.
That is amazing.
The book is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is betrayed bodies. It's attacks on our health and our bodies. And Part 2 is betrayed liberties, and then betrayed states. So life, liberty, and property, just like John Locke.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote it. I really put a lot of effort into this to not put anything in there that your progressive family member would look at and say, well, that's a conspiracy theory. Anything that somebody could say might be a conspiracy theory, I didn't put in this book. And I still got 45 glaring examples of things that the government has admitted to. Everything in there is something that the government did, got caught doing, and then admitted to.
Wow. So you're also a Patriot Academy Constitution coach.
and instructor for Institute on the Constitution.
Wow. So, I mean, you know this stuff backwards and forwards. So obviously, I want to go through these things and take the 30,000-foot view into three parts because, see,
Okay.
folks, I don't want to give away the whole book. We're not going to sit there and read the whole thing on the air verbatim. How many pages is the book total? Do you know?
208.
Okay. Well, so that's going to be a fairly quick read for those of you that, but I mean, the thing is, you may get so engrossed in the stories, you want to go back and reread the book several times. However, this is from somebody who is employed by an agency and works for the Postal Service as a mail carrier. And he's written a book. And these cases, we all have been paying very close attention to what they've been doing as far as our health goes. The consensus, of course, and I'm not saying that this isn't happening, but the birth rate in the United States of America has dropped, and a lot of it was forced. And then we have the abortion bills to top that off. That's a fact. Dobbs, Roe v. Wade overturned. That's a fact. That's not conspiracy theory. What is, though, it's been misrepresented, is that all these abortion rights people feel like they've been screwed in the Constitution. No. This is all basically gave it to the states to decide what they want to do and what they don't.
What? Like, you mean like a federalist kind of system?
Yeah. Like the 10th Amendment, that reserves the government, reserved to the states. See, I love talking about the Constitution, Peter. This is good. Folks, there's a lot of things that Peter's got in this book, but I'm talking about the health thing, and we have used the term depopulation with a number of our guests on this show because of the jab, because they forced everybody to get the jab. Now people are getting turbo cancers. People I know personally are getting turbo cancers and are literally going back to the same doctors that told them to go get the jab,
Right.
asking for a solution. I can't see this as a conspiracy theory because all of a sudden, and you got insurance companies out there that their new actuarial tables are saying, gee, there are people dying awfully early in age. I mean, are we covering any of that stuff in your part one?
Well, again, trying to avoid anything that somebody could claim was a conspiracy. I'm not saying that is a conspiracy. I'm just saying I didn't touch on that. What I did in COVID was in the chapter on COVID-19, actually, COVID-19 hits in all three parts of the book, life, liberty, and property. In part one, the only thing I talked about was the vaccine skepticism and why it's reasonable to have vaccine skepticism after the 100 years of history that precedes it in the book, going back to the Guatemalan syphilis studies, the Tuskegee syphilis studies, and the human radiological experiments, and MK Ultra and Project Sunshine, and the biological warfare experiments of San Francisco and Operation Sea Spray, and like all of these things. So again, 30,000-foot overview. If you've been paying any attention, if you don't trust government, if you're a skeptic of government involvement in your life, you're probably going to know most of the stories in this book. But like I said, I tried to write it in a way that's non-offensive to even the most progressive person out there. So you get it, you read it, and you think, oh, I forgot about that one, or oh, I didn't know about that one. But when you're done with that book, you can hand it to your progressive sister-in-law and say, read part one. You want universal health care? Read part one. And they'll read it and go, oh, okay, I might still want universal health care, but at least now they'll understand why we're skeptical. 100 years of history, 100 years of human experiments on citizens of the United States performed by our government without consent.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, we have so many of our listeners out there that have that progressive sister-in-law that they're trying to convince, look, please don't get the booster. And they don't get it. It's like now there's new studies out that are saying people are getting the boosters have a higher risk of getting cancer.
Right.
You think they want to believe it? No, they would say that's a conspiracy. Well, see, now we've learned, all of our audience anyway, Peter, have learned not to trust science. They don't anymore trust science. They want to find every holistic. We had Megan Smith on talking about alternative cancer therapies. These are things now that, the doubting Thomases of the world out there, and there are still people, we're still using the word woke in most of our quarters. Do you use the word woke in your book?
I don't think it appears anywhere
Okay,
because, again, trying not to be offensive. I
fair
really want
enough.
this to be a book that you can hand to the most progressive person in your life, and they will be able to read it without being offended and have a better perspective of why you and I and your audience are skeptical. You talk about not believing science. Well, that didn't start yesterday. One of the things in part one goes to FDA revocations. A third of the drugs that the FDA puts their seal of approval on get pulled off the market because of safety concerns. A third.
Huh. Wow. Yeah,
And
after they're already out there and people have been consuming them.
millions of people, two
Yeah.
thirds of the population, two-thirds of adults in this country are on a prescription medication, at least one. Now, if a third of those medications are going to get yanked off the market at some point, how many millions of people right now are taking a drug that is eventually going to be deemed unsafe?
So we're looking at a mild attack on big pharma.
A mild attack. But
Yeah,
but
because you have to keep things on neutral ground so that the progressive sister-in-law will say, "Oh, I
right.
didn't know that." Yeah.
So I addressed that in particular issue as so the FDA is tasked with declaring these things safe and effective, but they get all their data from the company that's making the drug. They run the studies and they have a financial interest. So you really need to look at that study with a little bit of skepticism, a little bit of inquiry. Otherwise, what's big pharma? They're just going to say, nope, everybody got 100% better and nobody died. Here, approve this drug.
Yeah, I know a lot of liberal thinking people out there whose loved ones have passed away, and they're basically just in denial about what
Right.
caused it.
Yeah.
I mean, does this even? I'm assuming that if you give it to your progressive sister-in-law that found herself in a situation like that, that she would at least give some credence to the possibility that what caused it was something nefarious that might have gotten pulled off the market. My bigger problem here, though, Peter, and I don't know if you covered this in the book or not, is because of the fact that Pfizer, you remember how they fought with the FDA and the government and everybody, all these people are suing, trying to enforce the Freedom of Information Act, and they wanted to wait 55 years
Right.
to release all of these studies. I mean, that is a fact.
Yeah, it is fact.
Yeah.
You have to meet people where they are. Let's talk about that progressive sister-in-law. You can't go to that progressive sister-in-law and start talking politics and immediately jump into, the 2030 plan from World Health Organization or whatever, because they're just going to shut you off. You're going too far. You have to meet people where they are. You can't teach a child to read by handing them a copy of Les Miserables. You have to start with, Jack and Jill and Dr. Seuss, and then eventually they'll get to Les Miserables. I wrote this to be that meet people where they are book. So you and I, it's a reference for you and I. It's 48 chapters. I'm sure there's at least one thing in there that you didn't know about.
But it's the way you phrase it too. Because this could almost be a guidebook for people that are trying to get through to woke, people who are awake that need some cue points to
That's my hope.
convince.
Yes.
I mean, I'm liking this as a study guide
Yeah. That's my
for
hope.
those that wow. And this book is soon to come out, folks. It's called Trust Shattered. Now that we pretty much have gone through part one. If we're looking at this from a medical perspective, because that's a big thing now, because everybody's getting sick, and big pharma's been in the picture, and the government with Operation Warp Speed, and people pointing fingers at each other, and so now here. Part one gives you a neutral ground to approach the progressive sister-in-law with what's in part two.
Part two is betrayed liberties. And believe it or not, government attacking the liberties of the people that it's sworn to protect started just 7 years after the ratification of the Bill of Rights with the Sedition Acts. So the same Congress, many of the same people that were in Congress in 1788 and passed the Alien and Sedition Acts, many of those same people also ratified the Bill of Rights. They knew the First Amendment, yet they passed a bill that said it was illegal to criticize government. How quickly government turned. 7 years. And our federal government made it illegal to criticize them. So part two is, betrayed liberties, government's erosion of our freedoms, and it goes over things like the Japanese internment, McCarthyism, and the NSA surveillance that started a lot earlier than most of us think, and of course the Patriot Act, and that with the Patriot Act, they can do whatever they want. They can take stuff from us. They can surveil us at all times without warrants, sworn to and signed by a judge.
So the is COINTELPRO mentioned in the book?
COINTELPRO is there, yes.
Okay. People need to understand that because, if it hadn't been for that bunch raiding their office and recovering documents, we wouldn't know these things. But see, people who are not, and this is a bigger problem, I think, even though the Constitution has been a part of our history, there are people out there trying to erase it. And when you have people who are, basically what did Sadhana say? Those who basically are ignorant of history are condemned to repeat it. They don't want to know history. That's why they're trying to wipe it out. Because if they can take our collective unit and make it all about a me-first society, then it's easier to control the individual than it is a whole group of people that profess that the blood of, what was that, the Tree of Liberty from time to time? Yeah.
The blood of patriots and tyrants.
So, they seem to forget about that part of the Constitution, especially when it comes to actually doing things like our southern border and enforcing our southern border. Because, if we're not being invaded, half this country thinks we are. The other half doesn't, obviously, because we now have red states, blue states, and purple states. So at least all of Congress got their colors straight.
Well, before I came on, you were talking about January 6th.
Yeah.
I talk about that a little bit in part two, but I start that chapter by saying, ignore the fact. I don't care if you think it was, the worst insurrection in history, or if you think it was a bunch of grandmas parading around the Capitol. That's not relevant to this chapter. What is relevant is what happened after January 6th. And that was the use of national security letters, NSAs, to surveil the cell phone geolocation data, the bank records of thousands of people, and interview 3,000 people, arrest and convict 1,200 people based off data that they gathered without a warrant because of what was given to them by the Patriot Act. I don't care if it was a giant group of armed militia. You can't do that. You need sworn affidavits to get a warrant signed by a judge describing specifically what you're looking for. You can't blanket grab, hey, T-Mobile, I want the cell phone geolocation data of everybody in Washington, D.C. on this day. That's unconstitutional. That is a general warrant, which was specifically forbidden in the Constitution.
All right. So we've got about 3 minutes left of the segment, Peter. Part three.
Part three, betrayed estates. Things like, I don't know, what's the, I can't remember what it's called. Oh, civil asset forfeiture. Inheritance taxes. Like, why do you have to pay taxes on money that you already paid tax on that you're going to try to leave on? Things like that. It's all about your property and government's attack on our property.
And this is why they have trusts, and this is why they have legacy trusts. For those of you who have never heard that term, legacy trusts on average run anywhere from $20,000 to $35,000 to set up. And usually the people that have a lot to protect, actually, and you'd never, ever, ever have to pay a tax because trust, basically everything just conveys upon the passing of the trustor. So that's one of the reasons why we look into stuff like this. Those who don't have trust don't understand it. I get it. It merits research. Trust, speaking of which, trustshattered.com is the website for those of you. Now, I didn't see, there's a few pages there that have been loaded up, But there is a May 1st release date on this.
Yep.
And, of course,
you can pre-order it at trustshattered.com. You can also enter to win a free copy. For every 10 people that enter to win a free copy, I'm going to give away one. So, 10 to 1 odds. That's not that bad for something that's free. And it will be available in paperback, hardcover, ebook, and audiobook. I'm recording the audiobook now, which is the final step of my own personal editing process. So, May 1st. I'm really excited.
Yep, it sounds like that. But see, here's the thing, folks. With all of the stuff that and talking points, if you want to fine tune constitutionally what is going on in the world, and especially in the United States of America, we've got, you said 46 cases?
It's 48 chapters.
48 chapters.
3 of them are conclusions, so 45.
45. And so this is the thing, government betrayal, and this is a stuff that's happened over time. This just didn't happen overnight. And it didn't just start with the corporate founding in 1871 because the U.S. went broke. It's not like that. And people will say, oh, well, that's a conspiracy theory, too, because they don't want to admit history. They don't want to deep dive, and a lot of our listeners are that way. So, folks, here's the thing. TrustShattered.com is where you go to pre-order the book. We encourage you to do it because it's going to give you that neutral ground. There's a lot of vets out there that have relatives, family members, and I mean, all of you served out there, and those veterans out there that served understand you know what the Constitution is, but you've got to find that happy ground, because I know once you've been in wartime or you've served in the military, sometimes the blinders come off and you see what's really going on, and you want to tell people, but you got to tell them the right way. This book, I think, goes in that direction. Peter, thanks so much for joining us. Peter Seraphin, Trust Shattered. Go to TrustShattered.com, order the book. We appreciate you being on the Power Hour. Thank you so much. God bless you for the work you're doing.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Harmful organisms.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah. Hey, one thing I forgot.
Sure.
Didn't get to put in. Apparently, the book is striking a nerve because Google keeps slapping the dangerous website warnings.
Why am I not surprised? Oh, my God.
About every 2 or 3 days, somebody contacts me and says, I tried to go to your website and it said it was dangerous.
Oh, my God. See, they don't want the word getting out. They're all part of this. I know they are. All right. Well, good luck with that. I definitely am looking forward to reading the book, because there's a lot of us out here that just want to go full tilt boogie on our in-laws, and we can't do that. So this helps, I think. So we'll keep pushing that.
Well, I'll let you know once I have, once I finish my final edits, and I can share out like electronic versions. I'll send it to everybody I've had interviews with.
Super. Yeah, I would like to see it, because then we can follow up with another interview post and then and talk a little more about it.
That sounds fantastic.
I appreciate it, Peter. Thanks so much. Good luck with the book.
Have a great night.
You too.
Jerry, are you there? Can't tell if he joined or not.
Well, it says he did on my screen, but
it says he joined?
it says you added Jerry to the
I added him,
conversation.
but I just don't know if he actually joined or not.